Bob? Done.
Now, oh, calm down, Puddin'.
You've forgotten what I told you a long time ago. One of the painful truths of comedy. You always take shots from folks who just don't get the joke.
Interested.
Yeah, well, I had some really interesting nightmares.
You would have been proud to see him so strong. What hurts more? A or B? For
Good night, everybody.
Howdy friendos, my name is Stuart, and welcome to the part of the channel where we take a look at pop culture characters and determine what alignment they would be in Dungeons & Dragons. Today we'll be looking at DC Comics character known as Joker. However, as per usual, today before we begin, we'll be establishing a few ground rules. The video and character interpretation today that we'll be using is the Joker presented in 2019's Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Right away, I'm going to say I'm a huge fan of this movie, and I believe it deserved all of its Oscar nominations. Now, I am a firm believer of presenting my biases, so that way you may take my interpretations with all the grains of salt that you need. And believe me, there was a lot of salt about this movie. If for whatever reason you missed it, the movie caused some controversy upon its release, and I'll talk about that more in my closing arguments, but there were a significant number of people who believed that this movie would spark mobs and all kinds of different nonsense. Either way, because of that, expect a tiny bit of political speak near the end of the video, but I will try to keep it from leaning in any particular direction. Although, apparently I have this reputation of playing devil's advocate for both sides, so take that as you will. I will also not be drawing any comparisons between this and The Killing Joke, the comic that this movie is based on. I'm not particularly interested in what the comics have to say because I'm just a filthy casual that just watches the movies. That being said, this movie does have some things that I want to cover. There is some background information and some things I should mention before we begin this whole thing. Oh, and if it's not obvious, spoilers, I guess. First of all, I will only be judging the actions of Joker based on the rules we established in our Shrek video. Just as a quick recap, law represents group mentality, honor, contracts, and the strength of your word, while chaos is all individualism or working in the defiance of expectations. Kind of like Rian Johnson. Actually, yeah, I should do an alignment video on Rian Johnson someday. He actually is a good director, despite what I said all about him in my Kylo and Ren video. Good acts are things that you do for other people. Selfish or uncaring can be neutral provided they don't hurt others, and if characters hurt or harm others intentionally or not caring about the consequences, most likely evil. Secondly, because our alignment videos are all based on intention and perception, we'll be taking nearly all of the actions in this movie at face value. The Joker movie borrows a lot of narrative tricks and concepts from movies like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, where things that we see are hallucinations or psychotic breaks within the character. However, these moments are still important in defining our character. That is because while the moment may not have actually happened, it was still real based on the perceptions of our character, especially during parts of the movie where the rug is ripped out from under them and they realize they've been living a lie. The mental anguish of our character is still extremely important to his development, even if no words are spoken and no actions are taken. That being said, that leads into our third point. Joker clearly has a mental condition that affects his moods, emotions, and actions. However, much like in the Rick video, we cannot use this as an excuse. If an action is evil, we will be considering it evil. I'll be making a Harley Quinn video soon, later in the month, but one of the things that I like to praise the show about is that Harley eventually realizes that while she was incredibly messed up due to her physiology, background, and even relationships, it's no excuse for what she's done. She is still in charge of her actions even though she is clearly sick. With all that out of the way, let's introduce our character. This movie is an origin to Joker, the main villain in Batman's rogue gallery of antagonists. This origin story takes place in 1981 and focuses on a man named Arthur Fleck, a party clown for hire and aspiring stand-up comedian. He lives with his mother in Gotham City as her main companion and caregiver. He suffers from a condition called the pseudo-bulbar effect, which causes him to laugh at inappropriate moments. This condition was developed over the course of his childhood from the abuse he suffered from his mother and her boyfriend. Apparently, he suppressed this memory and has to rediscover it over the course of the movie. Because of his mental conditions, the abuse from his family, and the lack of care he gets from Gotham's social programs, he is mistreated by those around him and regarded as a freak. But shockingly, Arthur, at least at the beginning of the movie, is doing his best just trying to get by. Honestly, what makes us sympathetic most to his character is the fact that he is such a hard-working character, and due to circumstances outside his control, he is pushed deeper and deeper into anger and despair. And like I mentioned, we won't be excusing his later behavior, but the fact that Arthur starts out as such a hard-working, self-motivated character, only working to help himself and his mother, we will be starting his alignment at true neutral. Arthur appears to be a relatively chill guy and dreams of making people laugh. You might be able to make the case that he starts off as neutral good, but since we don't see him going out of his way to help anyone else aside from his mother, I think that this alignment is most appropriate, especially since we see him in his spare time mostly focusing on his stand-up goals. And that's it. Here we go. This cold open shows Arthur struggles with keeping himself together and putting on a happy face. Neutral. Also, way to open your movie with a nat 20 scene. This image perfectly summarizes the movie. Arthur chases down a bunch of kids who stole his sign. Lawful neutral.
I was wondering if you could ask the doctor to increase my medication.
Arthur asked to have his medication increased in order to not feel miserable. Neutral. Arthur plays with a random kid and then has a breakdown. Arguably not an alignment decision, but perhaps chaotic neutral.
All worked up. Eat. You need to eat.
You need to eat.
It's clear Arthur loves and cares for his mother. Neutral good.
What is it? Take it.
Arthur knows it's against the law and company policy to carry a gun, but does it anyway. Chaotic neutral.
The guy said you disappeared. Never even returned his sign.
Because I got jumped. Didn't you hear?
For a sign. That's bullshit.
He tells his boss the truth about the sign, but gets punished for it. This infuriates him and teaches him that telling the truth doesn't always work out. Lawful neutral.
Really good dancer. No. No, it's not. Him.
Arthur plays with a gun, casually causing it to misfire. Chaotic neutral. Arthur stalks his neighbor girl. Now, Arthur didn't mean anything by it, but I cannot in good faith ever consider stalking a good or neutral action. Don't do this. Chaotic evil.
I said anything, and she said...
Arthur takes notes and studies about becoming a stand-up comedian. Lawful neutral. Chaotic neutral.
Arthur, I need to know why you brought a gun into a kid's hospital.
It's a prop. It's part of my act now.
Lying about the gun afterwards. Chaotic neutral. Arthur uses the gun to defend himself against the attackers. Defending yourself isn't evil, it's neutral. However, chasing and gunning down an individual completely is chaotic evil. This is why I love this movie. This action is incredibly ambiguous and we're not quite sure what he's feeling. It seems like he's processing what he did and accepting his action. And while the preceding scene only exists in his mind, he believes it happened, which means through his perception, this act is chaotic neutral. Once again, this didn't happen, but in his mind, he totally just went up to what is basically a stranger and made out with her. I shouldn't have to say this. Do not do this. Chaotic evil.
Why don't you ask Randall about it? It was his gun. What? I still owe you for that, don't I?
Arthur tells the truth about where he got the gun, but only to screw over the guy who gave it to him. He then proceeds to vandalize the building before leaving. Chaotic evil. Arthur does stand up and completely bombs. Neutral, I guess?
Fuck him. I think the guy that did it is a hero.
While this scene didn't happen, it shows that Arthur feels nothing but joy for killing the businessman and thinks more people should die. I'm going to say chaotic evil, but if you want to use my own logic that his perception thinks he's doing good or neutral, that's honestly kinda fair, but I'm gonna say chaotic evil.
You're gonna kill me. You're gonna give me a heart attack.
Arthur, while at first freaks out at his mother, he then calms down and listens to her story. Neutral. Arthur visits Bruce Wayne at his mansion and tries connecting with him. He has no ill intent, but he undoubtedly knows this isn't okay to do. Chaotic neutral.
Thomas Wayne is my father.
He then attacks Alfred when he doesn't hear what he likes. Chaotic evil.
You said you were fired for bringing a gun into the children's hospital. Is that true, Mr.
It was a
Fleck?
prop. It's part of my act.
Arthur lies to the police. Chaotic neutral. Breaking and entering, impersonating an usher, and then confronting Thomas Wayne. Chaotic neutral.
Who is this?
Oh, hi, this is Shirley Woods. I'm the show booker from Live with Murray Franklin.
Arthur agrees to go on the Murray show despite being suspicious. Lawful neutral.
Last time I ended up taking it out on some people, I thought it was going to bother me, but it really hasn't.
What's that?
Arthur just confessed his crime. Chaotic neutral.
But I can't let this go without her signature, okay? I'm sorry.
Arthur then steals his adoption papers. Chaotic neutral.
Oh my god. What are you doing in here? You're in the wrong apartment.
After discovering his abuse, Arthur seeks comfort in his girlfriend, and when he discovers she wasn't real, he then takes it out on and kills his mother. Chaotic evil.
Knock, knock.
Arthur practices his entrance into the Murray with the intent of killing himself to make the biggest impact possible. Chaotic evil.
Now,
That's
you're my
important.
boy,
You
and
know, it makes a lot of sense.
you know what I mean?
Thank you, Randall. Thank you so much.
I just want
Arthur kills Randall, blaming him and selling him the gun that lost him his job. Chaotic evil. He does make a point to let Gary go free. I'm going to say chaotic good. Joker is born and completely free of his inhibitions. Chaotic neutral. Joker causes a train riot and the cops chasing him get the crap beat out of them, which he just laughs and leaves. Chaotic evil.
I just thought I'd be good for my act.
For your act. Didn't you hear what happened on the subway? Some clown got killed.
He's aware of that. He's aware of that, yeah.
No, I hadn't heard.
Joker lies about his knowledge on the events of the train and then asks to be introduced as Joker. Chaotic neutral.
You're just like the rest of them.
You don't know the first thing about me, pal. Look what happened because of what you did, what it led to. There were riots out there.
The climax of the movie is a total Nat 20 scene. It's uncomfortable, funny, disturbing, alarming. Joker confesses to his crimes, gives a half-baked speech about society, tells uncomfortable jokes, and then kills Murray. This scene will be talked about for years. It's legitimately amazing. Chaotic evil. In the end, Joker laughs and accepts himself as the catalyst that started all this chaos. Chaotic evil.
Do you want to tell it to me?
Joker does something bad to someone while running away laughing. It's implied that he killed them, so I'm going to say chaotic evil. So, after watching this video, again I gotta ask, How is this supposed to be a movie about the alt-right and white supremacy? Listen, like I mentioned earlier, I'll try to keep my own personal politics out of this, but this doesn't make sense. This movie was about abuse, mental health, and our treatment of the mentally ill, and the failure of modern healthcare. As many of you have probably predicted, Arthur started out as true neutral character, but ended up as chaotic evil. And that's probably not surprising in the slightest, especially considering who we're working with. Also, and a rare bit of behind the scenes from me, I'll go ahead and reveal that if you look closely at my alignment charts, the Joker is indeed labeled as chaotic evil. This is one of my favorite movies, and I genuinely enjoyed what was given to me. I think Joaquin Phoenix absolutely killed his performance, and while a lot of this movie was inspired by Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, I don't really have a problem with it since we got a great dark and gritty film about one of the best comic book characters. Otherwise, tune in next time where I check out his girlfriend Harley Quinn and her new DC series, and if you're still waiting on that, check out our other alignment videos. See you next time.